I've had the Galaxy A01 for a couple of days now, and when I started this unboxing 2 days ago of the Galaxy A01, I had very low expectations because it seemed like it had a really bad screen, really bad processor, and just overall really bad specs, and probably a pretty bad design, I was assuming. But then after 2 days, I realized that this phone is actually pretty great. So let's get started with this review. Hey guys, I'm Adam, and this is That Tech Dude YT. So let's get started with this video on the Galaxy A01. Let's start off with the design of this phone. The design is actually pretty good, with a great build quality for $60. Now, this isn't the best quality, but I would actually kinda compare this to the iPhone 7. This could just be me, I don't know, but comparing to the matte black iPhone 7 to the Galaxy A01 actually feels pretty similar, even though this is made out of plastic, this is made out of aluminum. So I don't know, this could just be me, but let me know in the comments below if you have the Galaxy A01 and you have the same thoughts as me of how the iPhone 7 feels kind of similar to the Galaxy A01. So this is a matte finish and actually doesn't get too many fingerprints. You can see it in sunlight, a ton of fingerprints, but if you're just in normal, light or, like room light or whatever, then you're not really going to be noticing this, and overall, the back design is pretty great. So let's look around this phone right here. We have a speaker grill on the back, which is pretty interesting, haven't seen on many phones. This is usually a disadvantage because that makes the speaker, you can cover it easily, and it's on the back, so it's not like front facing or anything like that. And then on the bottom we have a USB-C port. Now I do want to say that the international version does have a micro USB port, so yours might be a little bit different from mine, but most of the carrier versions, I believe, do have a USB-C port. I don't know if you could see this here. Yes, you can. You have a little microphone right there, and then also at the top you have a 3.5mm headphone jack, which even like the newest iPhone or the newest OnePlus phone or many phones don't have this, so pretty impressive there. Good job, Samsung. Now on the side here we have the volume up and down, and so just letting you know, all of the back and the sides are made of plastic, so not just the back, the sides too. And so this is the volume up and down. And then on this side, finally, we have the SIM tray, and we also have the power button. Now let's take a look at the display here. Now the display is actually pretty good for $60. I was originally thinking, oh, this display is not going to be that good. Well, it's actually a pretty great display. It's a PLS display made by Samsung, and it's 720p. Now that's not great, but it does get to about 304 pixels per inch, which is pretty close to Retina, which is 326 pixels per inch. So yes, you can see pixels, but not actually that bad. It's actually not that bad unless you get, really, really close. Then obviously you can see pixels, but overall, if you're just having it from a distance, it actually looks pretty great. Colors are vibrant, it looks good, but just letting you know, it is LCD, so it's not going to have the deepest, darkest blacks or anything like that, like an AMOLED, and it also has a decent amount of glare here. Now this is a hole punch notch, and it is kind of, an old kind of design, but overall, as you could see here, it actually makes great use of it because you have face recognition. Now face recognition actually works a lot of the time, and actually it just worked right now. Now in low light conditions it doesn't work as well, but for the most of the time it's pretty great. So yeah, this display is pretty useful. I mean, this hole punch notch, and so it's actually pretty great. Now you do have a very thick bezel at the bottom, so obviously that's one of the worst things about this, and you can see that, it's not great at all. Sorry, I'm not sure what's wrong with, focusing today on, my phone's not focusing on the phone for some reason, so I'm not sure why, so I apologize for that. But anyway, on the sides you actually do have some pretty slim bezels. Yeah, so looking at those bezels here, they're actually pretty thin on the sides, as you can see. And, yeah, so let's see how bright this display actually gets, because I want to do kind of a real world scenario here. So, in the shade, as you could see it. And so this is at This is actually not at the full brightness. This is at the full brightness, and as you can see, looks pretty good. And then once you go out into sunlight, you really can't see it. It's pretty hard to see. Now my phone doesn't really capture it that accurately, but you can kind of see it a little bit more than this. But besides that, it's going to be kind of difficult to use in bright light situations. But if you're just in normal light, then it should be completely fine. And yeah, the display should be completely fine. You know, if you're playing games outside or doing anything like that, it should be completely fine. And speaking of games, let's talk about the performance. So the day-to-day tasks of this phone is actually pretty great. Well, not great, I would say. Great for a $60 phone, right? It's actually pretty good if it was a $100 phone or if it was a $120 phone, because the Snapdragon 439 with 2 gigabytes of RAM isn't that bad for day-to-day tasks. If we're going into, you know, some basic tasks like GSM Arena or Twitter or something like that, you can see it does take a while to load, but once you're scrolling and things like that, and everything's loaded in, then it's actually completely fine. Now, for heavier, intensive tasks, it is a little bit worse with gaming, but overall, it's actually a pretty smooth experience with, you know, light 2D games that don't require a lot of power. So, you know, some simple 2D games are going to be completely fine and really smooth, to be honest. So I'm not going to load up Call of Duty here because it will take too long. And so I want to make this review short, or at least a little bit short. You know, not super short, but a little bit short. Call of Duty here runs on, you could, I believe, do medium graphics and a high frame rate. No, if you only low graphics and a high frame rate. So actually pretty good. So you can get, even though the graphics are really low, you can get a pretty smooth, like maybe 40 FPS. So not that bad here. And so, to be honest, it's really not that bad in day-to-day use. You know, you could do some light gaming, even do some pretty intensive gaming. You won't have a problem. Now, loading up certain things, you know, should maybe take a while, you know, like the camera app or YouTube or Netflix. But overall, you know, things like that are pretty great. Oh, and talking about the camera, we have a 13 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera on the back, and then on the front you have a 5 megapixel front facing camera. Photos with this aren't actually that bad. With good lighting, it looks pretty good and actually pretty sharp. I'm going to show you some sample photos right now. Here's a shot, and as you can see, it's obviously not the best, but even if it was like a $150 phone, this would be like completely fine. Now it doesn't have an ultra-wide camera or anything, but it's actually pretty sharp, the main camera, and yeah, it looks pretty good. Now the depth camera doesn't ever seem to work, and when it does, I think it worked like once or twice. It was really bad. I mean, it's 2 megapixels, so it shouldn't be good. But I do want to show you an example of what you're paying for, basically, and what you're going to expect in some challenging, in some challenging shots. So, for example, here's a shot of my door, and so there's a lot of sun coming in. So this is pretty bad dynamic range, as you could see. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. And I would say I would give this photo overall like a 5 or 6 out of 10. So not that great. Lower light usually isn't that good. Now this specific picture that I took at about 6 a.m. What actually turned out okay, but there definitely was a lot of noise and grain, as you could actually see from the picture. Well, I don't know if you could actually see from the picture, but you could see there's a lot more noise and grain. So not great, but overall, not terrible for a $60 phone, or actually pretty great for a $60 phone. Now you may be asking, how is the front-facing camera? Well, the front-facing camera isn't that good. It's okay for a $60 phone, but you won't be don't expect anything, amazing, right? This is a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, and it's really more of a camera that you're not going to be using that much, because you probably just shouldn't. In low light situations, it's not great. I took a photo in, a lot of light, and still it does not have good dynamic range. The detail is okay, but overall this is not a good photo. Now there is live focus on the front-facing camera too. That actually doesn't look terrible. I guess it does an okay job with software processing, but it's definitely not even, that good at all, to be honest. But now let's talk about videos. So videos actually come out okay. And so with a lot of light, they look fine. In lower light, they don't look that good. But I am going to show you a sample video here. Video of the Galaxy A01. And as you can see, it doesn't look terrible. There's no EIS or OAS going on here, but it doesn't look terrible. Let's go into this plant right here, see if it focuses. Kinda does. It looks okay. So yeah, this is 1080p at 30 FPS, and this is the maximum you can go. No 4K here, so yeah. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is the battery of this phone. So, this battery is 3,000 milliamp hours, and so it's actually not that bad. You might think, oh, that's actually a really small battery, because most batteries are, 4,500 milliamp hours or 5,000. But in reality, because this is such a, low resolution display, and that, it's a pretty small display at that, because only 5.8 inches, which I did not mention. Well, so the 3,000 milliamp hours is actually pretty good. What I've noticed using this is that usually if you standby is amazing, and then if you don't use it at all through the day, then it's barely going to drain anything actually, and so that's pretty good. But if you're using this a lot, then you'll probably actually get through one day, not 2 days, not 1.5 days, one day. Now if you're a heavy user, you'll still probably maybe get through a day. If you're doing some light gaming and stuff like that, and you're doing even some Call of Duty Mobile, it will do completely fine. And actually, what's surprising is that when gaming, the phone won't heat up and the battery won't drain that much, so pretty impressive there. So the last question everyone wants to know, is this phone worth it? Well, I'm going to tell you right now that I came in with very low expectations for this phone. I thought this phone was going to be bad and wasn't going to have a good screen, good specs, or anything. I thought this was just going to be a complete trash phone, and, I might as well just throw it in the garbage right now. But actually, in reality, it's actually a really, really great phone. So, yeah. Now, will this compete with, $1,000 flagships? Absolutely not. But for $60, this is a pretty amazing phone. And so another question that some people might be asking, why do I need to spend $1,000 on a phone? Why shouldn't I just get this phone? Well, actually, you should just get this phone if you're really just a light user, just want to do some light gaming, where, the flagship processors come in is with multitasking and performance with high intensive gaming and Antutu benchmark and day-to-day tasks and opening up browsers and apps and things like that, loading up the camera faster, and so having a better camera itself, having better speakers, having better display quality. But overall, you can get by with this phone. And so you basically can do everything that a $1,000 flagship can do. Now, except Fortnite. But, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. That is my review of the Galaxy A01. Hopefully you guys liked it. If you guys did like this video, leave a like, obviously. And then, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to this channel, because we actually got to 250 subscribers. And so, this is kind of like my special video, because I haven't done these reviews in a long time. This is a prepaid phone, and so it's actually pretty great. And so, I haven't done these prepaid videos for a really long time. I did one with the Galaxy A10e, one with the A50, and you guys did seem to like it a decent amount, so I decided, hey, why not get the A01? And so if you guys want me to do this, a little bit more, suggest what phone I should do next. Should I do the TCL A2X, which I might do? Should I do the Galaxy A11, which I also might do? You just let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later.